I think people are sleeping on these shoes. This is the Puma All Pro, and it might just be one of the best basketball shoes of the year. What's up and welcome back to another WearTesters performance review. My name is Alan and today we're taking a look at the Puma All Pro. This is an updated version to the Clyde All Pro. The Clyde All Pro was released back in 2020 and that was pretty much a critically acclaimed shoe. I love playing that shoe so much that I even bought the high top version and played with those quite a lot. I do believe that if you enjoyed playing in those original versions, you will also enjoy this. But if you're new to these shoes, that's okay. I will try my best to explain my personal experience with them. My only initial complaint with it is that it looks way too much like the Stewie ones. But looks aside, this is a really good performance basketball shoe. The updates with this shoe are very subtle, but it makes sense because if you have a shoe that good, why drastically change it, you know? But one thing that didn't change is the traction performance. The traction on this shoe is phenomenally good, just as the first. This one has a translucent outsole, but don't worry, Puma has a history of their translucent outsoles outperforming their solid outsoles. For me recently, I had the Stewie ones from last year that had the solid outsole, and unfortunately that didn't work out well for me. I tried it in different surfaces and it never broke in. Some people who had the Stewies that had the translucent outsoles expressed that they didn't have that problem and it worked fine for them. The same thing happened for the MBO ones. So there is still a chance for solid outsoles to not be good. In terms of the traction pattern, the forefoot area is very similar to the first version. It has that parquet floor traction pattern that is reminiscent of the Boston Celtics.
Hey, that's my team.
I know, Larry, not right now. In the first version, you had some cutouts in the heel area and that was done to reduce some weight. They also do a similar thing here in the heel area. They have those two cutouts and you have that cutout right in the middle. So that reduces the rubber, which in turn reduces weight. The pattern also extends in the medial side, which is good. I'm always a fan of that, and if you're changing movements and you're more creative with your footwork, you'll really appreciate that. One last thing about the outsole is that it is a wider base compared to the first version. The forefoot and the rear sections of the outsoles are wider. Not only does that help with traction, but that also helps with overall stability. With this new cushion setup that it has, stability is even more important. When I first tried these shoes on, my initial reaction was that it felt very comfortable and it felt softer than the first Clyde All Pros. And that's not a slight to the first version because the first cushion setup was not so bad. I would categorize it as a neutral cushion setup. This is very similar to that, but with a bit more softness and bounce to it. The bounciness of this shoe is really not that far off from the bounciness of other units that have air zoom bags or ETPU foam. Sure, those have more explosive rebound, but sometimes people don't want that. And so this is going to be a good tweener option. In terms of stack height, it also was neutral. Some of those shoes like the Jordans and the Nikes have protruding zoom bags, so they're gonna feel slightly higher. The shoe employs a dual density setup. So what that means is that it has a carrier foam, and inside that carrier foam is a softer foam, and that is that nitrogen infused EVA foam that Puma has. If you look at this shoe closely, you'll see the red peeking through. That red part is actually that softer foam that is in this shoe. I think that dual density setup really does help with stability. Again, the shoe is also wider in terms of its base compared to the first one. And so those two things really help, even though the cushion is softer and more comfortable than the first. Some people complain that Puma shoes tend to lack court feel because of their dense foam. If the traction is working well and if the cushion is comfortable, I don't mind losing a bit of court feel. You know, with this cushion setup specifically, I think this is the best iteration of Nitro foam. Now, having said that, I haven't experienced the Puma TRC Blaze courts. I heard those are really bouncy and comfortable. They just had an outsole ripping issue with it. The insole inside Puma shoes nowadays are pretty thick. They're pretty comfortable, and for me personally, it lasts me quite a while. I don't see the need to replace them with something like a Move insole. For me as a light player, it does last me very long, so hopefully for other people it will last longer. But yeah, it does add to that softness of the cushion setup. But I'd like to think that this iteration of Nitro foam is also just the biggest reason why this cushion setup is feeling much better than most of the cushion setups that I've experienced from Puma. For sizing and lockdown, I do believe that going true to size will work best for you. I switch between playing with braces and without. But with Puma shoes, I've experienced that the width is actually all right. It's of average width, and the more you play with it, it becomes even more accommodating. I went true to size with this shoe, and it works out well because my first Clyde All Pros were also, you know, true to size, and I was able to wear that with and without ankle braces comfortably. Going true to size will work for some people that have slightly wide feet. Your best bet is to go to a store and try the shoes out. These shoes are pretty widely available, so I think you're gonna be able to walk into a store and be able to try them on to get the best fit. The construction of the tongue and the laces are very similar to the Stewie shoes. It has the exact same U shape here, and as you can see, the tongue just ends in the midfoot area. It also has a lace lock here that helps with that, but the fact that it's not extending down to the forefoot, it's just gonna stay still for most of the time, and that's good. Compared to the first lacing system in the Clyde All Pros, this lacing system here extends all the way to the forefoot area. That helps to narrow down that forefoot fit. For people who like a wider fit in the forefoot, they may not like that. Also, sometimes a bubble forms in that part of the shoe. With a lacing system like this that extends to that forefoot area, that's gonna help prevent that. Another important update to the lacing system of the shoes is the nylon cables that you have here in the forefoot area. In the older Clyde All Pro, I believe it was some textile cables and loops, and a lot of people complained that it ripped for them. I personally didn't have that experience, but they did feel pretty delicate, and I can see why that could easily rip apart just because they're textile. If you take care of the fit, the support will come in naturally, and you're gonna be able to take advantage of the other support features that this shoe has. And you have that solid heel counter, you have that wide base that we talked about earlier. This shoe actually has better torsional rigidity compared to my first Clyde All Pros. When you put force into it and try to bend it in the midfoot area, it's gonna be very tough. There is some forefoot flex, but in that midfoot area, it's harder. When I do it with the older ones and I put my full force into it, I could easily bend that shoe in the midfoot area, as you can see right here. I have the Kuzma version, but I think it should be the same for the regular version of the Clyde All Pros. What's helping is this plastic bottom loaded shank plate right here. What that does is also just help complement that cushion setup that this shoe has. It allows it to have a little bit of spring back effect. When you put your feet inside, you'll see that this white part, the top part right here, actually acts as a sidewall for your feet, so it keeps your foot in the footbed. You have the synthetic layer here that just adds more rigidity to the upper. As cheap as the upper may feel, it is effective. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of this, but this is a problem that is not exclusive to this shoe. You know, there's other shoes that are around this price and also have cheap feeling materials. If you're looking for good quality materials that perform well, you'll probably have to go to the smaller independent brands like Brand Black or Ethics, for example. For performance purposes, it will serve you well. It's breathable and it is not going to require that much of a break-in time. It does feel stiff at first, but after you play with it for quite some time, it's gonna start to loosen up and feel much better. As for the overall weight of the shoe, it actually is the same weight as the Kuzma Clyde All Pro that I had. The Kuzma Clyde Pros are made up of different materials though, so it is heavier than the regular All Pros. So overall, this is heavier than the original Clyde All Pros. I don't think it's a big issue at all. Since this is a dense cushion setup, it may feel slightly bottom heavy, but I didn't notice that when I was playing. It didn't bother me at all just because of how comfortable it was. Another improvement in the All Pro is that the way it tapers around the toe area is better. I think there is a bit more space for the toe here so that it's not jamming into the upper, because in the Clyde All Pro, on some occasions I would feel some pain and blistering on these toe area, and I think that's because of the way it is shaped and also because of the lining inside. It feels like the lining in the
Puma All Pro is a bit softer, but I really do think that it's more about the shape.
That is about it for my performance review of the Puma All Pros. It's a no frills shoe that I think is going to easily be one of the best basketball shoes of the year. The looks of the shoe is also very simple. It's a nice streamlined look. Hopefully we will have other options of this shoe where, you know, they have fun with synthetic leathers or suede or anything like that. I think that's what kind of drew me to the Kuzma version of the Clyde All Pros, because that was a cool collab between Luigi Villaseñor and Puma. Again, this is the Puma All Pro. Hopefully you get to try it. Have fun playing basketball out there. My name is Alan, and I'll see you again on the next performance review. Peace.